I know you got to lurk tonight. Thank you. I'm hanging in there. No guests are on yet. Les
Back in
and Anna are
2001,
not
when we
here yet.
first began working with
But
Gary
yeah,
Gygax, he pitched this
hanging in
wonderful
there.
series of
Thank you
books
for
to
asking.
us. Yeah, he called them the Gygaxian Fantasy Worlds, and what he envisioned was this encyclopedic set of books for role players, writers, game designers, the whole lot of us that we could use in making our games, creating our adventures, writing stuff for publishable content, whatever it may be. And there was really no end to what he envisioned this series to be. We eventually published The Canting Crew, The World Builder, Living Fantasy, 7 volumes in total. We had another 3 that were ready to go to print, another 3 or 4 after that we were working on. So the series was really open-ended. We are bringing these back. That's what this Kickstarter is. We've got 7 books online ready to be printed. We've got another 3 right after that we want to get it minimally out as we were working on them at the time. Those will be out definitely in PDF, depending on how well the Kickstarter does, and maybe even more than that once we kind of push beyond the necessary stretch goals and all that mess. But welcome to the what we're calling the Gary Gygax World Building Archives, and please give us a
Really, it was
support.
beautiful
Share
here. It was
around if you
like
can.
70.
Pledge if you can. Whatever you need to do, whatever you can do for us and the
Yeah.
movie Gary Gygax, we very much appreciate it.
Loud, 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 loud.
Trollord Games.
Sorry.
Join the fray.
My hands were not in a spot where I could undo that loudness. Whoops, I just made a mistake here on something. I got to undo that too. So let's go here and let's go. I'm guessing.
Hi, welcome to Gamescape
I guessed right.
TV. Today we're going to be going
Just
over
waiting for
our
Les.
release of our gigantic cliffs. We have a lot to go over, so let's get to it. All right, before we jump in and see how this thing is standing up, let's look at some of our smaller features. Get some of these figures out of the way. All right, you're going to have a folder in there called Magnet Face Cliffs.
Let's see what we got here.
Those refer to a few specialty items that we have here. You can see this tree right here. It actually just pops right off. And after you pop it off, you can go ahead. I have a door piece you can swap in there. I also just have a plain cliff face you can swap right.
How are you?
Whoops.
Oh, good. How you doing?
I'm okay.
Pop in there.
Mm-hmm.
Long week so far.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say you're on an adventure.
Hey man, lurking away. Thank you, Team Killer. TK, I always appreciate it. Thank you very much.
A door appear in the side of a cliff
Preludes.
for you to enter inside or whatever. So this one right next to it is another swappable one. We have a cave entrance.
Dude, that's crazy.
These things blend in real well on the tabletop, as you can see.
All right.
So there we go. No cave.
Let's see.
Cave. Just that simple. Okay. And then our last one is down here. Shelves right here. This whole thing comes off. Okay, and there's your magnet faces on the back. You're also going to have open locks everywhere you have magnets. Most of the time you're going to want to use magnets. We're using 3 by 8 millimeter magnets on this. I needed something with a little more punch than the 2 by 6s I usually use. So you can see the open locks being useful in some cases. Mostly I think you'll want to use them on side-to-side connections potentially, because you will get into situations where the magnet polarity isn't set up correctly for what you want to do. And those open locks will override.
I don't think I forgot anything. I'm always thinking, what did I forget to do?
In terms of this base here, you can use any 1/4 inch material. I'm using hardboard here. You could use 1/4 inch cardboard, 1/4 inch foam core, some kind of plastic, plexiglass, anything you got available. You could even use 1/8 inch material and shim it up a little bit or double it up, whatever. So there's the hardboard I'm using. Okay, and these set right on top. I'll go ahead and move these out of the way so you can sort of see the front mechanism. Okay, so we got magnets all along here, and these are just the tops of the cliffs. Your board sets right in here, and you do not need to cut precisely. We got a lot of overlap coverage there, as you can see. In most cases, most spots, you're looking at up to 1 inch of coverage. So, you know, if you're within half an inch,
good to see you. Jeremy, good to see you. Keith, good to see you.
Take care of it. And then we have magnets, and these things just pop right in there and hold things into place. These, this one here is an earlier one.
With a cat on your lap,
a little deeper. I decided to change
that sounds good.
Yeah.
For the one I'm releasing you, so you don't have so much 3D print coverage going back. It doesn't really interfere if you're just doing a cliff face, but if you form these things into an entire butte, that extra rock really ended up taking up a lot of surface space. So I'll trim that back a little bit. So there you go. That's how those top plates hold into place. There are a few features that I'm not showing today that will be available in your kit. Each one of these cliffs will have a half version, so that's going to come out to about 135 millimeters on this upper print part. So you can print these tops. I do not have that available for the swappable faces, but everything else does have that available. I also have 2 turnout corners instead of turning in, and I also have a 3-part switchback trail that I will use as a painting demo about the middle of the month. So that's something you got to look forward to. All right, let's flip this thing around so we can get a quick look at the back side of it. Okay, here we are on the back side of the cliffs. You can see the cliffs themselves provide quite a bit of support. So, you know, if your platform's only going to be 7 or 8 inches, you probably don't need any additional support. The cliffs will take care of supporting.
By the way, I did do the giveaway for all those who wondered. I did it after the fact because it's in Streamlabs, not on Twitch, and Lando won, so just so you're aware.
You might want some extra back supports to keep this thing from tilting over. As previously mentioned, I have designed some simple mechanisms here that you can pop together that'll provide you the support you need on the back end of your platforms. The last feature I want to go over are slotted cliffs for allowing your characters to climb up them. You'll have 2 of these wider cliffs, 1 of the narrower cliffs, and 1 of the turns with these slots in there. And what we have here are slots every 25 millimeters. Okay, and then on this side I have slots every 50 millimeters, maybe for creatures who aren't impeded by vertical climbing. You know, if you want to have a spider drop down and attack your characters while they're climbing or something.
Yeah, I brain farted, so, but I got it.
These
hey, Bill.
slots are 4.4 millimeters tall.
I do the shout out for that.
Slotted for 32 millimeter bases to give you a little more room to work with. Most of your bases are going to be between 3 and 3.5 millimeters tall. So in most cases, that's going to work out just fine. If you need extra support in the folder where these slotted climbable cliffs are, I have provided a little shim you can print out. And you can just thicken this up if you need to. I have the one included at 0.5 millimeter. So here's probably your thinnest base on a modern Mini.
Here comes Les.
Hey, good.
Blue Joy, what's up? Hope you're doing well. I haven't been able to catch any of that afternoon stream lately. I've just been so busy. All right, cool.
Hello, Les.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Now
good,
we
man.
can hear you.
Excellent.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Oh, so good to have you again.
Yeah, a subject particularly dear to my heart.
Oh, that's good.
Dear to
Yep.
your heart and unknown to me in my game.
I bet you have more Fey and Fey adjacent things than you think you do.
Probably,
it's-
but I just don't call it that, right? Or I just
Yeah.
don't link it
It's-
in. I mean, I do a lot of Underdark stuff, but not.
It's by nature something that sneaks up on you.
Yeah. I mean, tricksterism and trickery are part of the Fey portfolio, so...
Okay.
Yep. It's also one of these that is very flexible in that sense that you can encompass a lot of things.
Well, that's why I think one of the things I'm going to touch on is you have Fey and then Fey adjacent,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, there are some things in D&D where folklorically they would be Fey.
Yeah. and
But in D&D, they're there. They're not quite Fey, but they're right in the orbit of.
Yeah, and there's also there's a lot of things to, if just the expression Fey, so to speak, in D&D and in
Exactly.
Greyhawk. So there's many different areas and aspects to this we can touch on. Yeah.
And as per usual, I dug up a few obscure creatures we might want to consider too.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
that's cool.
I wrote a primer and put on my Patreon on my Firehawk view of how that fits into my campaign, the Feywild and
Cool.
stuff. Yep.
Let's come live. Jay's moderating tonight. I'll say a little bit, but it's all right. I'm beat anyway. I'm long work week already. All right, here we come. Coming live. Hello. Oh, I have to fix Zoom. Imagine that. So, good evening.
You always have to.
Oh, jeez, it's just so annoying. I have with me tonight Anna B. Meyer and Les, Invisible Conjurer, Oblivion Seeker.
Hey, y'all.
Good to see you both. We'll have a fun discussion here on the Fey. I put Feywild, but that's a realm.
Yep.
The Fey,
Yep.
is a very interesting concept, and I'm going to excuse me. We'll do this first. I pushed back the sign-ups for events for TriggerCon 5 to September 28th. We really need DMs. Okay, now Greg Reborn promises their games next weekend, so I'll have them in right before the signups. But we need more games. We need more events. I'll be pushing hard for some streamers too. Excuse me. I got a couple holes, so trying to get them filled for events. All right. Good to see everyone. Got some really great games in, but we need more. Definitely need some more. All right. So here's the link for it. Remember, you don't need to be a live streamer to put in a game. All right, I'm gonna have a cough. Yep, I'm gonna have a coughing
I'd
fit.
be a good example of that.
Exactly.
I don't stream, but I run my games. My games people seem to enjoy them. So
Good. Then you can maybe consider streaming, but that's a lot of technical plus you have to go through in order to do it. So yeah, since I've done it a few times, so it's kind of tricky. We'll see if I can hopefully pull it off streaming it on.
It's a lot. And can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
can hear you.
It's
Yeah.
so much. It's so much to take that lead. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
both of you, Les and Anna, while I have this coughing fit, talk to me about your thoughts on this discussion tonight, where you want it to go.
Yeah.
well,
Go for it, Les.
I was going to say, I love things fairy tale and fae related and folkloric. And you get the sense when you go through the Monster Manual and the Monster Manual 2 that Gary Gygax did too. And when you look at the Fiend Folio, it's obvious that the Brits who assembled it had a great fondness for similar material. Also, I mean, there are some of the short stories, some of the Gorge short stories we could go into that touch on Fey themes. But within that context of the early game, you have a tradition within fantasy fiction as well. When we get to some of these creatures, I'm going to talk about some of the literature that some of them were in, not just the folkloric literature, but I'm talking about literature of the fantastic that they appeared in that influenced Gygax, and I think influenced some of the early contributions to the game. And what I really want to look at, I think, the way I tend to look at it, and Anna, we can see if we agree on this, the things involving the Fae seem to touch on at least three categories or three topics. One would be that intersection of humanity or human civilization with nature.
Mm-hmm.
Another would have to do with trickery, like where something appears to be something and it may not be exactly what's being perceived. And then the third would be the idea of bargaining with something.
Yeah.
Sometimes catastrophically, sometimes to your own benefit. Or taking something, I have this thing that belongs to you. You want it back. I want you to do me this service. That kind of thing. And that's what I really like is that they're right on the cusp. They're not devils. They're not that kind of, they're not contract lawyers of evil, like I like to describe devils as being. But they can cut really close deals. Many of them, being nature spirits, are temperamental and unpredictable, at least by human standards. And there's an element of fear and uncertainty that comes into it. And it's almost, to me, I always think of when I used to wander off into the woods. There were some woods near where I grew up, and I used to love wandering off in there. And sometimes you'd find where now I realize people had made these little wooden structures, right?
Mm-hmm.
These little stone, almost like from Carl Edward Wagner's Styx or from the Blair Witch Project, these little doodads out in the woods. But as a kid, I would be freaked out, right? My imagination would get going, and the wind would be rustling the trees, and you start thinking you're hearing voices, right? But there's nothing there. And then maybe you hear laughter, and you're convinced that something is laughing at you, but you're not quite sure what the joke is, except you're the butt of it. And that's the kind of feeling that I love instilling, using with the various Fey creatures to instill the feeling I want to instill in some of my players sometimes with them. That sense that you're on the edge, you're in that liminal space. And to borrow a line from a New Order song, we're dealing in the limits, but we don't know who with, right? So that's kind of my take on the Fade in general.
Yeah. I agree with a whole bunch of it. I think it's a lot of great points. I want to add a couple of other aspects or dimension to it, to the discussion to begin with. It's interesting. To me, it's like Fae is in D&D. First of all, it's one of these things that is very central, but still kind of oblivious or forgotten or overlooked. Look at, meaning Fae is the fairy tale stuff that we want to have in D&D. So it's always been there, from hags to little brownies and all sorts, many critters and phenomena and all of that. All the things that we know from fairy tales and stuff, from red caps to whatever it is. Meaning there's so many, all the themes from fairy tales and local folklore and superstition is there, and a lot of that would, I think, fall under the term Fae, so to speak. And it is all been in D&D, but since its inception and then been elaborated later on. But let's get to that later. What kind of interesting to me, because there's another stuff, another kind of type of creature or phenomena that comes from folklore that has been given mechanical input into D&D and been treated much more seriously from a game perspective, and that's undeath. Meaning we have vampires, we have all the undead have been treated with mechanical stuff, class features, etc. But Fae was just there to give a little bit of flavor. They haven't been given the mechanics and stuff like that much. So that to me is interesting, because Fae, I think, has as much gaming potential or D&D potential as undeads have, as vampires and skeletons and mummies and liches and all that. The Fae are as rich of a ground to world build from, or to put cool stuff in your adventures. but it's been overlooked up until the fourth edition of the game when this came out, a very underrated book. This is a very underrated book, the
Yep.
Manual of the Planes from fourth edition, that actually had the Feywild and the Shadowfell as real places or planes, at least. If they're real or not, that's something that we could talk about later. But at least they were described and statted out and have been given locations, monsters, and all of that, so to speak. So they became locations, just like the higher planes or the lower planes and all of that. So they got their rules, mechanics, and they were described and treated like all the other cool stuff in D&D in fourth edition. And I think to me, that's one of the best editions from fourth edition. One of
And
the
I was
best.
going to
Yeah.
throw out there as well one of my favorite books from fourth edition that way. And I'm not a huge fourth edition fan, but I don't mind
Same
mining
here.
some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Heroes of the Feywild,
Mm-hmm.
the fourth edition supplement.
Yep.
Has a lot of really cool.
Yep.
Again, it's just a lot of it is stuff that I think you could use in any campaign if you just stripped out the mechanics or looked at the mechanics and thought about it in terms of conversion. I mean, there are lots
Yep.
of ways to go through it.
Yep.
There's some cool subclasses. There are some cool feats if you're into that some stuff. And the flavor text about the Unseelie and Seelie courts is incredibly cool and fleshes out what's already in Manual of Planes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I a lot of that stuff that is in there about the Feywild and so on, I don't like that much. So I'm not using that part, but I love the fact that they put it in there because that triggered my imagination. I used it as a base to work from, so to speak. That they gave me the idea of how I wanted to use the Feywild. So even if I don't like it, it's just being there. I like that it is there, and that gives me. Sometimes I like to read stuff that is not for me because that gives me an idea how I want to do it, so to speak. So
well, along those lines, also, I'd probably say going back to first edition,
mm-hmm.
you did have a kind of look at this is post Gygax though. Look at the Queen of Fairies and her entourage and some of these species in
Yep.
an article that was in, I believe, Dragon 155. It was called "The Folk of the Fairy Kingdom."
Yep.
And that's an incredibly useful article. It takes you through the different types of fae that are already existent within D&D, or several of them, and it gives you examples of adventure hooks. It gives you examples of it references all the older ecology articles and early Dungeon Magazine adventures that featured these creatures. So it was kind of really an all eyes on the fae, and then their version of the Fairy Queen, who in that version is Rhiannon rather than Titania. I don't really think the names matter. I mean, these are variable and malleable beings known probably by many names across many worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you can sound like a Celtic figure in one and then sound like the figure from Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream in the next, it doesn't particularly faze me. And really, a lot of that background lore, one of the things I love about it is that it's actually left fairly ambiguous, right? What you were saying is, to me, a feature, a real benefit to the Fae that you don't have with some of the other stuff, where it's overdetermined and overburdened at times by its lore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you know what I mean, there's far more leeway and wiggle room and interesting stuff that you can therefore do to make the Fae your own and to give your own twist on human-Fae interactions.
Yeah, that's something I think a lot of more game products should do, like what the Greyhawk setting is doing. That leaves a lot of wiggle room, and like they only paint the broad picture, and give you ideas that you can then, as an individual DM for your campaign, go in detail and decide how you want to do it. So instead of giving you every detail, so to speak. So yeah, that's good. And the Fae is particularly malleable, so to speak, to a lot of things that they can fit so many niches, more than one, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we can talk about some
Oh, that
examples of
yeah.
creatures. We can
mhm.
talk about
Yeah, and also there's a couple of other things I think we should do in the beginning. We
Yeah.
have fey creatures. That's one thing we have to take a lot of the show about talking about that. But then we have fey as the concept, so to speak, meaning
Yeah.
what type of what are they general things, meaning what is the difference between fey and demons or fey and celestials or whatever it is. So we have some sort of idea. Are there, or they might not be, so to speak, but are there commonalities? What is a fey creature in general? And then we also have the Feywild or the Fey realm or whatever as a place in itself. Is it a place? Is it a phenomena? Is it just a type of creature that can pop up everywhere or stuff like that? Because that is also an aspect that I think from a world building perspective is really interesting. Where
Just
can you
a
find these
So,
critters
so
and why, so to
I'm
speak?
going to ask
Yeah.
a question.
Yep.
You're right. I mean, there's stuff I use. Like I looked right through this 155
Yeah.
Greyhawk, and then we got stuff. I mean, these elven gods that
Mhm.
show up. That only, as far as I'm aware, I'm the only one that uses these Aratha and these gods in my campaign that are on here.
Yep.
And there's a lot more discussion in this, but
Mhm.
it's because it's elven. You got to explain this to me. It doesn't mean it's like Fey realm.
Well,
It's
exactly. What is the relationship
right,
between
right,
Elven and Fae? Because and maybe
right.
even Druidism and so on, because they seem to
although
be kind of
there's a connection.
related, but
Yeah.
whatnot. So yeah. Mhm.
I mean, for
Please.
example, it is the fairy kingdom of Selene,
Yeah.
which
Where does
does
it say
suggest
that?
something.
I thought it said the Elven Kingdom of Selene.
No, it's the Fairy
The
Kingdom
fairy
of
kingdom.
Selene. Yep.
It
Oh,
says
That's
that.
the official title of the country. Yep.
Wait. No, is it a retcon title or is that the official title in the original glossography book?
Oh,
I believe
that
in
is
the
a. I
in the
think it
original
might be original too. Hang on a second.
because
Yep.
Gygax in the first in the which
I have to
novel
look
is it?
at
The
it.
second one, Artifact of Evil, when they go to Selene's court.
Yeah.
I believe it refers to the fairy court, and it mentions all the fairies who were hanging out there.
All
So
right, that's 1985. So let me just
Let,
see. I'm just
let's see.
curious. I'm curious. The 1980, not the 83, the 1980. So you
Oh,
guys cheat.
83 is as that was
Her Fey
Gary's.
Majesty. There you go. It says Kingdom of Selene, but it says Her Fey Majesty. So I'll give you a half on that.
Yeah.
Because Her Fey Majesty, the Queen of Selene, Lady Walt of all Elvenkind.
Yeah.
But it says Kingdom
Exactly.
of Selene in here. It doesn't say Fey Realm of Selene. It says Kingdom.
I'm
No.
pretty sure when you look at 83, it becomes fairy
No,
kingdom.
it's the same.
Yeah.
The text in the 83 is the same.
Okay.
It's
Right.
yeah.
Okay. I just want to
So
make
it's
sure.
she's her Fey Majesty. Yep.
All right, I'm going to be bluntly honest here.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything about the Fae ever until I heard about the Living Greyhawk Geoff stuff with Eric Mengi and Jose
Mhm.
Ortiz and all them, and how they went
That's yeah.
over.
Because that's
Yeah. Okay.
Because
So
that's a Greyhawk story. Meaning if you
right.
look at
Okay.
it from a Greyhawk publication story, that's basically it. There are a couple of these
Okay.
kind of dragon articles that vaguely ties into Greyhawk, but
Got
they're
it.
not specifically Greyhawk that talks about Fey stuff. There, and then we have the Fine Folio that has a lot of Fey monsters and other monster books, but they are not particularly Greyhawk, so to speak. They are generic AD&D.
And like I said,
Yeah.
I'm willing to say with
all good.
Artifact, which Melf's literary debut as well. And it's kind of neat that you get when it's describing when they go to the court, it describes the fairies, and I believe it mentions several brownies and pixies and so
Mhm.
forth hanging around in the royal court in Selene. So there's clearly a connection.
Yeah.
And we could go deeper into the lore, and we could get into the stuff about the Celadrine and the Eladrin and how that's played out over different editions. But you know what? That just leads to a huge mess in many ways.
Because it is a huge mesh that there's never been. It's not as established as the other one, which I think is kind of cool because it is kind of a chaotic realm that is all over the place. So
Yeah.
even lore-wise, it is all over the place, and very little, if anything, of that ties into Greyhawk. Meaning, fourth edition had. That was nothing about Greyhawk in the manual of the planes. So
Matter of
the
fact,
Feywild and stuff had, yeah.
I just want to go back, and we've got a couple of comments
Yeah.
in the chat here.
Mhm.
Please.
Lorcalon says, do you consider the Feywild as well as the Shadow Dark and Prime Material separate planes or all existing in the same place, albeit out of phase with each other, like stations on a radio? Yes. That would be my answer.
Okay,
Um,
now
okay.
I'm going to
I'm going to say,
yeah.
in other words, how can I put it? That's a question that I have an answer to as a DM. My players don't necessarily need the answer to that.
Yep.
And I would argue even a race that is connected to the Fey may not understand everything about the Feywild, if that makes sense.
Right.
Any more than like an American might necessarily know the history of their ancestors' land that well. If you see what I mean. If there's a connection,
Yeah.
and then maybe it's forgotten, or maybe it's been, it's not as clear in the mind as one would think, even for a race like elves.
Okay. I'm all good with it. I just, I definitely want to just note that I'm coming
Yeah.
from this perspective where this, like, my players have zero interest in this. They love elves and they love, leprechauns and fauns and satyrs and dryads. But they don't want to go traveling to the Feywild.
They don't have to.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not, yeah. And so I'm going to be listening here and seeing your perspectives because I saw Jose and Eric's and the stuff that I can't believe. I mean, it sounds like their entire Living Greyhawk campaign for like years. That's
Oh yeah,
all. That's all the campaign was about. Which
yeah,
you know,
they
so
really they went
yeah,
wild on the Feywild, so to speak. They really included the Fey, and there was like a Fey dimension to a lot of stuff in the Living Greyhawk Geoff campaign. And I put a link into my primer. I hope it should be available for everybody. So if you so that's my primer, and that includes my view of how the Feywild came to be, what it is, and how it kind of interacts with the rest of the world, so to speak. So I'm not going to read all of it loud, so to speak, but that's my idea because I've been thinking about it for years. But the overview is that the Feywild was originally when creatures starting to evolve emotions and instincts and feelings and stuff. Those feelings and stuff created, meaning these are metaphysical realms. They're only partially real, so to speak.
right.
They exist primarily in the minds of all the creatures. That's how they initially came to be, and then animals started to take use of this realm, like the fairy tale realm, so to speak. And some of the first ones to do it were like fish. We have aboleths, and so things go rampant in the Feywild because you don't have the constraints of the real world. So things can evolve
Did you
into
say aboleth?
yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
that's what I don't get. How's a
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's long. That's like millions of years, many millions of years. They are old. They are like fish who went crazy, in that sense, so to speak, and gone fishy.
I thought they were
And
just aliens.
okay, well, you can have the
I mean,
aliens. Yeah,
so this is where I'm having a problem. How
yeah.
connecting an aboleth to the Feywild? That just
Oh yeah,
that goes beyond my
that's I
comprehension.
just yeah, but it's this is just me world building, and I
Okay,
want to
okay,
emphasize that that's me
okay,
world building. I just wanted to have a realm where things can come and go, so to speak, and develop into weird forms and stuff without the constraints of the real world,
okay, okay.
and so on. And some of the first ones to do it were the aboleths and other fishy monsters, so to speak. Maybe
I
the
think
kraken comes from there too. You never know, but it was one of these. And then the other big type of creatures that went there were lizards and became dragons. And then eventually humanoids and others came that way too, and they became elves and goblins and hags and all sorts of stuff over time. Some of them stayed longer than others, and and Feywild has evolved with the rest of the multiverse.
Okay.
So there are now connections to lots of other places and stuff too.
But you're
So
saying
yeah.
that they're there because the Feywild changed them, not that they existed there. That's a big difference.
Oh, they were critters that went there, and then the Feywild gave them new opportunities, and then they became all sorts of cool stuff over time, so to speak.
Okay.
They evolved differently there, and since they don't have the constraints of the real world, mean that you can do all sorts of cool stuff. You don't have to eat as much, time flows different, and magic is different. Things are more chaotic. They're bigger. You can do all sorts of cool things you can't do in the real world. And then you cross-pollinate back again. And since the Feywild has the connection, the more life there is, the bigger the more chance there is that there is connections to the Feywild, which means forests have the most dense forms of life. That's why you find connections to the Feywild in forests more than anywhere else. And the Shadow Realm, or the Shadowfell, is in the middle between the Light Fey and the Dark Fey. Originally, it was just Fey, and then when the lower and the higher planes were developed, you got Light Fey and Dark Fey. And that means that the shadow fell is in the middle, and that means that at dawn and dusk, that's where the connections to the Feywild is the strongest. So you can wander in forest during the daytime, but when the sun sets, then there's like gate openings to the Feywild, and then weird fake creatures can come around and scurry through the night or moonlight when there's shadows and stuff like that. So that's just my take mechanically to figure out how it works in my world building, so to speak. And then
I was going to say where I would differ is that there are creatures like Aboleth, for example, are these Lovecraftian kind of horrors who I would more closely associate with the Far Realms, right?
Oh yeah.
Then you have creatures which are kind of like mutated beastie forms of things on our world, like a kraken or so forth. Then you have with the Fae, and I hate to promote something else that I was on, but if anyone's interested, they can check out the podcast that I did with Wiley Hobbit and
that's good. It's no problem.
And Matthew, where we covered actually fairy tales and their influence. Cool. And one of the things that came up was originally, most cultures seem to have this. A little later, I'm going to have to touch on the Japanese and Chinese versions of this. But you have this idea of the spirits that are associated with nature, but they represent something beyond the human ken, if that makes sense. There's something beyond human knowledge. There's something, that experience that you have when you're in the woods and you get the sense of how old the woods are in relation to your life or the life of the human race. The idea that there's something that's old as that, and that maybe parts of it didn't even connect to another, what is often called an other world, capital O, one word, other world, right?
Okay.
This is where you get the stories of knights or warriors or even farmers being seduced and taken to a land by a beautiful maiden who eventually tires of them, and then when they're ejected from this site and from her presence, they emerge into a world where generations have passed or decades have passed, and they're young, and everyone they know is either dead or aged. You have the idea of you go into the woods, you chop down the trees, and something bad happens to you because that tree, there's a genius loci, there's something about that spot, right, that doesn't appreciate what you just did to it. This is the kind of thing, and again, there's that, and then I would argue as you branch out, you have these things that are kind of in the orbit of it. For example, and there's a reason I'm mentioning them specifically, you have swan maidens, right? You have, in a different direction, you have the elves who are connected to the Fae, but they aren't necessarily, how can I put it? The Oath is their home now. So whatever's going on at the fairy court, and then I would point out you have the fairy court, you've got the Seelie court, the Unseelie court, the Fairy Queen and the Queen of Air and Darkness. But you also have Fae who aren't necessarily affiliated with that. For example, brownies, neutral good. They just really want to hang out and, eat your stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. From the 4E version, they have that. It's a very organized Fae, so to speak. It's a place that it's organized, and they have the court, and it's a little cultural place with cool critters and stuff. My Feywild is way bigger than that. It's a place where you can go. It's like an
Well,
alternative
well,
to the astral plane where you
the
can
court
go
is just
basically anywhere.
the
Yeah,
court is just a place within the
yeah,
Feywild proper.
hmm
All right. So
Um,
so here, let me give you an example here
yeah,
of maybe where I see that the Greyhawk Fae.
hmm
Beyond the Crystal Cave UK1 is a great adventure.
yes, it's a superb adventure
Okay.
and ties a lot of that material into
Yeah,
the
and I love the
fabric.
story of the Green Man and and all the axes of the Green Knights and all that, and but that's it for me. Like I can't see my guys taking our characters now need to go to the Sealy Court and like they would go to the elemental plane of Earth or the ethereal plane or whatever. I don't know. That's a step beyond because I don't have my guys going to the Happy Hunting Grounds either.
Can
You
I
know what I'm
give you an
saying?
example of
Yeah,
how
yeah,
my
please.
parties, who
Yeah, okay.
at times can be pretty murder hobo-y and or trigger happy,
Right.
depending on your politics. How I lured them into doing the Fae a service, and then how they responded later with the Fae later responded to them.
Okay, that sounds yeah, sure.
There was
course.
an adventure that I ran where basically everyone's sitting at camp, and this ghostly figure emerges, and she's clearly battered, and she's bleeding, and she goes up to the only one of them who's wearing armor, because most of them were rogues and that sort of thing. But the only one who's wearing obvious combat armor, and she starts going, "Please, please, don't hurt my child. I'll do anything, anything. No, no, please, gods, no." And she runs off into the woods, and everyone's freaked the hell out, right?
Because I don't know what she's talking about.
And then it happens again the next night when they're camping, and he follows her into the. Basically, it happens while he's on night shift. He runs into the woods. The screams cause everyone else to wake up, and they go into the woods. They can't find him. He's disappeared, seemingly.
Right.
And she leads him to the site where her husband and her child and she were killed.
It sounds like a ghost.
And he finds on her body,
spirit or something.
Except here's the catch. I'll tell you in a moment.
Okay.
She's got a necklace around her neck, right? And the one who was running to him had the necklace. The one that her corpse does not.
Okay.
And that strikes him as curious. So they return to camp, and they're riding along. And the next day, they come upon some riders who are going in the opposite direction. And the guy who had gone off into the woods and seen this says, because one of the characters mentions this must be a vision. Something must be sending us a vision, right? There must be some purpose to this.
Okay.
They're riding along. They run into these guys, these kind of rough-looking guys who are like, so you're out here on this back trail. It's kind of dangerous in the gnarly this time of year, and with what all's going on. And one of them notices that he's wearing the dead woman's medallion. And the player characters just looked at each other and said, "Yeah, it can be dangerous," and then summarily just executed the lot of them.
Okay.
Because they had been the people who had killed this family, right? And stolen that woman's medallion. The Fae were afraid that the ghosts would wind up haunting the site, and the Fae didn't want that, so they sent an illusion of the woman to lure him to the body so they could show him and give him clues in the hopes that they would be able to kill the perpetrators, thus providing peace for the woman and her family, who, by the way, the players also buried properly. They performed the proper burial ritual and then avenged the woman's death and her family's death. And so the Fae were quite pleased that they had done them this service, right?
Okay.
And the Fae took an interest in them, and from that point on, whenever they're in the gnarly, or at least that part of the gnarly, for example, Jen, my girlfriend's character, she fell asleep one time, and she sensed something, and she woke up, and there's nothing, and she's asleep and dreaming this to the extent that no one else saw it. The person who was on watch didn't see it. A giant bear in one of Greyhawk College's, the attire of a Greyhawk academic, walked out of the woods and cocked its head at her. And she said, "Who are you?" And the bear replied, "Well, who are you?" And she's like, "I asked first." And he's like, "Well, who are you to ask me?" And the Fae started having this weird existential discussion about who are you, why are you in the woods, and basically was just communicating to her that, we don't mind you here. We're just curious about you. We like studying things. Don't you like studying things? And then when she woke up to the screams of her goblin henchmen who had been buried in acorns while they slept. And from that point on, whenever they went through, the Fae would always basically make sure they were on the right path, provide them stuff, because they had done the Fae a good turn, right? But the Fae would still screw with them somewhat, because the Fae are curious about this particular group of humans.
Okay. But it's an amalgamous who the Fae are in that case, right? The Fae of the realm. See, I would have done that. It was
when you say Fae of the realm, which realm? What are we talking
well,
about?
I mean that gave them that vision. Who were the Fae that gave them that vision? Right?
They're Fae who live in that part of the woods.
Okay. So for me, it would have been more like for me, it would have been a dryad who had an illusion spell or something like that. It would be more pinpointed, right? I'm just splitting hairs here, Les. All I'm saying is the way I would go. Yeah.
I'm saying with that, because other Fae spirits are pinpointed,
right?
And because my players chose to just not pursue that further,
right,
and just accept it at face value.
And
we have some Fae allies of sorts.
Right.
If they decided to pursue it further, they would have found out which Fae those were.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And that's just because I've never thought in these terms. Is what the point I'm trying to make. I pick a Fae creature out of the monster manual. I want to utilize it. I use it.
I think it's a great example of if you are game first or setting first. If you're
I'm Greyhawk setting first.
Well, you kind of think about it from a gaming perspective. Meaning, you go to the monster manual and you need a monster and so on and so forth. You don't.
But there was none of this talk in 1980, Anne, is the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly. And I was with you, because if you asked me 20 years ago or 30 years ago, especially, then I would have played exactly like you do. Now I'm thinking, okay, how do I want my Greyhawk? And then how do these things work? And I world build first. And then I say, okay, what kind of rules do I need in order to facilitate this, so to speak, and make it function for the players and with the characters. So the rules comes last, so to speak.
There was a rule consideration there. There were a few. I had them roll wisdom saves and so on and so forth, and there was a mechanical aspect to it. There's a mechanical aspect generally when I do anything that involves dreams.
Yep.
But the other thing would be that they got some of the swag that they got off of the dead robbers, the dead criminals. Was mechanically extremely useful to them later. And they probably wouldn't have acquired something similar to that had they not had reason to. But they could have just shrugged it off and not attacked the robbers, right? Or said it's none of our damn business, or whatnot. But as soon as two of the players realized, oh crap, these are the people who attacked that family, it's like, okay, well, nobody out here is making justice, so we're going to.
Yeah, it's like,
and it serves the Fae's interest.
Yeah, it's like Scottish Jeff said that. It doesn't have the Feywild, meaning that was like I said in the beginning. The Fae were just a little bit of flavor in Greyhawk, and still is in many ways. Living Greyhawk, Jeff is the only one that have really tried to put in the Fae as a core part of the experience, so to speak, and made it into. I tried in my campaign because I want to give Fae the same status as the lower planes or the higher planes or sigil or some. It's both a place, a phenomena, and there's some rules and stuff to it, so to speak, and it can have a lot of creators. I wanted to know why the Sus Forest is full of these kind of weird, nasty creatures and why the Cillian has kind of cool, and I also the cool other brownies and whatnot, the pixies and what it is, fairy dragons and stuff. And I also wanted to elaborate on the Fey connection with the elves and stuff. So I wanted, so I kind of emphasized on that and built it for my campaign. But that's just me world building and
Well, there's also I
torment
point
my
out
poor players with it. Yeah.
elven players know more in my campaign than non-elven players, than non-elven
Usually,
PCs rather
yep.
do. Usually, but not always to the extent that they think they do.
Yep.
Like you kind of have to defer. You know, it's like these are creatures.
Yeah.
These
Bob
are
Uso, yeah,
otherworldly entities in a way.
that's it's a great point. I'll get back to you. Yeah.
And
Please
also, I
continue,
would point
guys.
out that along those lines, when we start talking about like the what's the word I'm looking for here? That kind of way that you weave it in. One of the things that I'm very leery of is the demons, devils, etc., have vested interests in the prime. For me, with my fae, they maintain a certain degree of mystery because they, for the most part, when they take an interest in humans, except for creatures like brownies and so forth, most of them are just going to do it out of curiosity or with a specific agenda in mind. So they don't quite have the same vested interest in humans or in the human world that, say, devils and demons might. It's and that keeps I think a certain degree of uniqueness about them as well. I don't want them to be quite as active and involved in human affairs as some of the beings from the outer planes, be they the higher planes or lower planes. I do want them to periodically take interest, and also in terms of living side by side with creatures from that realm. I know I mentioned previously that there is the idea of the gnarly tax in my campaign, and it isn't really a tax. Okay, what it is, it's an arrangement whereby there are certain types of fairies, not just brownies, who kind of require food and drink, right? And they'll help you out. Otherwise, they can make your life hell. So the gnarly tax is an informal name given by farmers and settlers to the portion that belongs to the Fae. It's basically a bribe to make sure that the Fae are happy and content and looking out for things, right?
Okay.
And that's tied into a few of my adventures in terms of you're stopping at an inn and you're wondering why the innkeeper has just left out some goat's milk and a nice bit of cheese and stuff. Probably better fare than he's given the inn's customers, right?
It's an old tradition in many places. You put
exactly.
Christmas,
But I decided that
porridge for the
exactly.
Yeah.
Or cookies for Santa Claus.
Yep.
Except in this case, it being Greyhawk, of course, and Greyhawk being all about the domain of Greyhawk, and Greyhawk being so centered on economics, as is Divers, everyone just refers to it as a tax, right? It's colloquially become the idea of taxation, and almost like you're basically paying, or like you're paying rent in a way. They were here before us. We're just paying rent to them.
Yep. And one of these, now when we touched on the outer planes, the celestials and the fiends and all of that, and my take on it is that the Fey realm was originally the product of the imagination of animals and nature, so to speak. It was their instinct and dreams and urges and fears and desires and so on that led to the Fey realm. Meaning it's chaotic, it's very kind of wild place because it's literally made from that the thoughts of primitive animals up until animals that didn't come with culture, so to speak, primarily. And then when life had evolved into creatures that had morals and ethics, and when we go way beyond animals and stuff, when we get into humans and similar type of creatures that have culture and intelligence and wisdoms and stuff, it's their fears and stuff led to the outer planes. So that's kind of an expansion outwards. And that's why the outer planes deals with the fears and the desires and the urges of humans and similar type of creature, orcs and all of that, so to speak. And that's where I have the main difference. It's how they came to be is the main difference. And then they have exchange features over time, so to speak, because humans and others have gone to the Feywild too. So they've inspired. So the Fey have kind of altered over time, but originally the Feywild is an older place that has these kind of features. But that's just my take on it. Meaning this just there. I've just presented it as a one of the many alternatives, and I think that's one of the cool things with the Fey is that it can be a place where you could tweak it to whatever you want in your campaign, and you don't. It could just be a phenomena. You don't have. It doesn't have to have a place. It could just be a phenomena when certain conditions are right. These creatures come, or they come from certain magic or something. I mean, you can have druids might create them, or elves might do, or other magic, or they just be a natural phenomena when there's certain weather or enough deep forests are old enough. The forest just create these things. Brownies pop up and dryads or whatever. I mean, there are many different ways you can tweak this, or you can simply say, I don't care. My players don't care. I don't care. I just want cool monsters in my forest. That's it. And that's all the Fey you might need to. It depends on your needs as a DM and what your players want, what suits your fancy at your game table, so to speak.
Well, I think there's that. I also think that with this, we get into these areas. I like I said, I have my take on what the Feywild is and where and when it is. But I don't want to necessarily push that forward as canon. I'll say canon for my campaign, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
House
I like
canon or
having
whatever
mystery.
term we want to use it.
I like having the mystery creep around the edges, right?
Well,
and
yeah,
really,
and
if the emphasis is on the players, here's the other thing. One of the things that I try to do is, in the same way that those early stories represented very immediate and visceral fears of the unknown, of dangers that lurk outside of the community, of the potential for something outside of the community coming into the community and wreaking havoc. I try to use it as an extension of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That kind of trope. In a weird way, the Fae are like many good monsters, right? They're distorted images of the minds that make them up.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I want to quantify or kind of codify my Fae a little bit, because I tie it into magic. The primal magic works with the Fae, just like divine magic works with all the stuff that in the outer planes as well, so to speak. And so the primal magic works with the prime, elemental, and the Fae. That's the domain of the primal magic. It's weaker than some of the other stuff, so to speak, but it's and so that's why you can summon Fae and you can talk to them and you can do all sorts of stuff with primal magic. So yeah, sorry, go on, please.
No,
It's all good.
Say that, and this ties in. Jay, do you use the Swan May at all?
Yeah, absolutely. When I have a PC in my campaign, it's a Swan May.
Wow.
Because I was going to say, apropos of that, this would be a good example to me of a Fey adjacent creature. The Swan May is a specific derivation of a pretty common type called the Sky Maiden, right? Sometimes also, which is another example of an animal wife motif in folklore. You have in Siberia, I know in Siberian shamanism, there are accounts of shaman who are the children of human shaman and bird women, right? You have that kind of recurring motif in the association of the bird, often with water and with the sky. Hence swan maidens with that particular variant. And what you wind up having here, what's interesting to me is there was that piece I did in the Oath Journal. It was actually, I think, one of the first pieces I did, which is a legend about a Swan Maiden and her ranger companion. And the gist of it would be that
This could drive me crazy.
she felt that they could not be, they shouldn't be, they were good as friends, right? But her fear about the relation of anything more is that to some extent he's still fully human. He's incapable of the transformation that she can now undergo, having taken that vow, that bond,
Fiona,
and acquired
thanks.
the feathered cape and the iron ring, right? This signet ring, and so she is desperately thinking of it in terms of he wants to. He's still a human. He still has a desire to master nature, whereas I'm human, but I'm not quite as human. And in fact, I'm also nature. I'm transformative. I can shift shapes. I can, talk to animals. I can do these other things in a way that he can't. And ultimately, it results in tragedy for the two of them. There's a far happier version of a
Ew.
relationship between a warrior and a swan may in one of William Morris's books. And likewise, there's a swan may in Paul Anderson's Three Hearts and Three Lions, which is probably where Gygax. Those two books.
That's where Gygax got them from.
The more than likely the Morris and particularly the Anderson, yeah. But these are things that go back to like Scandinavian folklore and Nordic folklore, and you get but you wind up with that motif of the bird wife throughout, or the bird maiden in some cases, throughout cultures.
Yeah. The Fae is really old folklore and superstition and fairy tales put into D&D terms, so to speak, and very more so than undead ties into that really as well, so to speak. But it's I think one of the most clear-cut examples of take real world superstition and folklore and stories and stuff and put them in the I think it's a really good match, so to speak, for something that adds, because that's basically what fantasy is.
Well,
it's a way
touches,
of,
I would say too, the Swan May in D&D, it actually touches into, if I'm not mistaken, the Swan May of Greyhawk, wasn't it established at some point that they have a connection to Elana, right? And when you look up Gygax's piece on her, it mentions that among her friends, among the races that are friendly with her, are halflings, gnomes, and brownies. So again, you have that association of this. Again, I would say not a Fey creature, but something in the orbit of the Fey that has a close connection to brownies in that case, which are Fey, albeit oathbound Fey. So.
Well, I wish I could find what I was looking for, but I cannot. So keep on going. This is driving me crazy. I found it. All right. So, but I don't know what adventure it was, and that's the problem. I'd be looking forever for it. So, I mean, we've all created. I guess this is. I don't know if this is a tangent, but we've all created like Fey creatures, right? I mean, I have one that's right outside of one of the keeps, and I have that big tree, and her name's Fiona, and I actually saved her tree from getting chopped down one adventure, and she gave them special bracelets. Fiona's wondrous feather token. It gives them so she's giving them I don't know if it's essences of herself or things she's created, but here's Fiona's flowery bracelet of the flexion. She's giving them gifts off that, and sometimes they'll go and they'll just talk to her, about nothing. They'll just go and they'll just and that's my interaction with what I've done with the Fae. I respect that it exists, but I just maybe it's just I can't go that one. I can't go beyond. They're Greyhawk creatures, right? They're not another. You know what I mean? It's not. Demons are from another plane. We all know, right? But not every creature's from another plane. That makes sense. That's just. So.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And the thing is that the outer planes are far away. You need to go to another plane. You need to go to use the astral or you need to use the Feywild as one of the ways to go there, or you need a gate, or you need a really powerful magic or something to plane shift you there or something to go there. So it's a major undertaking. But I have the
Yeah.
Feywild is one of these things that kind of, if the conditions are right, you can just walk in there. It kind of, it blends together without any magic. It's just, it could be a natural phenomena, enough life, and if the conditions are right, like in the sus forest, you have connections between. So if you walk in there, certain places are connection all the time, certain things are only at certain weather or part of the day or something like that, or if enough critters of some sort are there, or some other special circumstance, so to
I
speak.
think along those lines, I'm just going to throw this out here
Mhm.
as a way
Yeah.
for people to think about it. Earlier, I mentioned yes to pretty much any possible location of the Feywild, right?
Mhm.
Not just because editions tend to be dicey on where the fairy court
Mm-hmm.
is. You have that article for first. You've got some stuff in second, which places stuff in Arborea. You've got then you've got then you've got fourth. Then you've got fifth, revising it further. Um, what I'm interested in is, how can I put it? Okay, I'll use a pop culture example, and it might be even be a bit pretentious, but hey, here we go. Twin Peaks,
Mhm.
the white and black lodges and
Yeah.
their inhabitants.
Yeah.
Fear
Yeah.
and love open the doors. Right? That's the line. Fear and love open
Right.
the door. There are specific spots. You'll notice that they're associated with mythic things. Glastonbury Grove is where all the people entered that spot, right? In the finale. Um, you have the idea of these creatures that are from outside, right? And they tamper in mortal lives. Now, I'm not saying it's a one-to-one correlation, but I'm saying that and the connection to nature as well. You'll notice that there's that connection between the logging industry and the seeming increasing malevolence of what's going on with the lodges. Um, I kind of like tie that stuff to, if that makes sense. That's how I view these things as connecting. It's like, to me,
Okay.
these are the black and white lodges. The Unseelie Court and the Seelie Court are almost like the white and black lodges, if you will, of Greyhawk.
So, and maybe I'm wrong here. It sounds like early Ravenloft.
In a way,
It's another little pocket plane that you can get slipped into.
yeah, you can
Yeah, and I think it's on purpose. Oh,
that's
sorry,
how I
Des.
tend
Yeah.
to view it. It's very much, you have the fading lands, and this would be
Okay.
very much be an example of a fading land.
I can live with that.
Meaning
Um,
we all want cool places for our adventures, and a lot of the
Mhm.
same things are cool no matter what. So we invent different versions of the same
Yeah.
type of coolness. We want places with cool monsters and they're a little bit shady and weird and
Right.
whatever. So
I'm
yeah,
talking about slipping in, something happening, not like I what they did with Ravenloft I think went too far, but like the early Ravenloft I thought was cool.
yeah.
Settings, where
Hmm.
something would happen, and it would be
that tends to be like. Let me give you one more example, right?
okay.
Because you were talking about creating someone.
Hmm.
So, do you guys know what a Menju is?
A what?
A Jin Menju.
No.
It's a creature from Japanese folklore. Well, actually, I should clarify. Yokai are these things that it's variously translated as goblin or demon, but the idea is that these would be nature spirits, right?
Right.
And the
Right.
Chinese have an equivalent called Yagwai, which, by the way, if it sounds cognate to Mogwai from Gremlins, that's deliberate.
Yeah.
But the idea here is that I love Jin Menju. What they are is they're these trees that have faces growing on them that look like human heads. They have fruits basically that look like human heads. And I kind of dug the idea. And the yokai are quite similar. Yokai and Yongwai are quite similar and overlap in terms of being the with the fairies in some way. They're nature spirits. They're associated with the same kinds of trickery and bargaining and tragedy at times. So I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reskin a Jin Menju. And what I did was I took the basic concept, this tree with fruit, right? And I created a tree that my players will never forget, and who they dread ever running again. Hopefully they won't, but who knows? There was a let me find him here on my list of there you go. There was a session that we did called the Fruit of Varvel Slathe. Varvel Slathe is the tree, and Varvel Slathe occupies his own little demi-plane, his own little pocket world, and it's accessible at times through the Sus forest. And because he pays attention to his surroundings, he knew where something else that they wanted to find would be, right? So they're like, well, we're going to go bargain with this tree, I guess, when they catch wind of it. They enter the tree's domain. The tree is in the distance. They start walking towards the tree. The closer they should be getting to the tree, the further the tree recedes. And that's when they see the orcs that have wandered in from the Sus forest, because this is right inside the Sus. And these orcs have gone completely bonkers.
Okay.
They've been there. They're old. They're pounding in rage. Starvation is set in. It's clear that there's been cannibalism taking place. And one of my players just puts the orc out of its misery, right? The last surviving orc. And then they realize, wait, and they start walking away from where the tree is, which actually puts the tree on the horizon in front of them. And as long as they don't look back and just keep pretending that the tree isn't there, they're actually getting closer to the tree. They have to ignore the tree to find the tree, if that makes any kind of sense.
Sure.
And when they get there, the tree is upset with them because those orcs that get lost, they provide sustenance for my roots. Except it says I, we, and my, our.
Got it.
It speaks both of them. It uses singular and plural pronouns to describe itself. And it's infuriated that they have deprived of it of nourishment. But then it points out there are other types of nourishment, however. And it asks them. Basically, it requests a joke, a memory, or a dream. If it's sufficiently succulent, it will take that from the player character. And if it's really, really good, it'll also give them the information they need so that they will be able to leave this place with the information they leave if the memory is satisfactory. And one of the PCs offered up his memory, and this has been a big story arc for him. He had gone from hitting rock bottom and everything, and he's cursed, but at least he had finally made a family for himself. And he traded his memory of his family.
Oh, wow.
So he would no longer recognize them, no longer realize that he had a partner, had children. He gave that up for the greater good. And the tree let them go and wished them a pleasant journey. And please, if you find anyone out there who's at all curious about horticulture, do send them our way. And they could have attacked, by the way, they could have attacked the tree. The risk with that would be that as you start inflicting more damage, the portal to the world that you're on starts collapsing. So that if you kill it, you've effectively trapped yourself in its pocket universe with its corpse.
Oh.
Which is why negotiation might be an option with some Fey-type creatures.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Those are cool mechanics that I like that it's in there, so you can quantify it. So you can end up with, it's not just about slaying a monster with a slightly different stat block. There's way more to it, so to speak. And I like that when you ties it in, meaning they might react different magic. So you can't use all types of magic, and it can use weird types of magic that other monsters can't. And so you should there should be more dimension than just the simple stat block. And so some Fey, and not all Fey can be the same, meaning shadow creatures can also be stuff, and there's so many others that you can tie things into. There might be other ways you can deal with them, like undeads. You have turning is one of these
Yeah.
things that you meaning you can invent other cool stuff that you can use in order to deal with Fey. You might be able to drive them crazy. There's an interesting way that they used in Joff. It was that the Fey couldn't alter anything. That the Fey realm was kind of static. It just kept chaosy, but it didn't change. It was only people from the outside, real people, that can change things. So the Fae needed the real people in order to facilitate change, so to speak. So there was like a bargain going back and forth, and so you can drive Fae crazy in some ways because they're just stuck in a loop basically, and maybe the Fae aren't real at all.
Yeah.
They might just be a figment of your and other people's imagination, and they're just annoying as heck because they're just that melody you can't get out of your head kind of thing, so to speak. So you can there's so many different angles you can play in this, and some Fae might be that, and some Fae might be more real. Some of them might be fully real if you want to. So there's so many different cool ways you can do this, but in some ways you can say Fae they're not really real. They're just, meaning they could tie them into illusions and stuff, and say that they are just a form of illusion, a collective illusion that has been around for a long time. And once you let loose, and if you believe in them, they become real and get power over you. If you don't believe in them, then they don't have meaning. There's so many cool ways you can tweak this one way or the other, and don't tell the players how you do it until afterwards. The players have to figure out, meaning if the players are treating that fake special creature as real, and they say that but the player, that character attacks, the creator attacks them, they take off damage and stuff, then it's fine, then they believe in it. And then if one of them say no, hang on a second here, I don't believe in this, then you give them a saving throw, or they insist it's not real. If they doing that, then the damage is not real or whatever. Meaning there are many different cool ways you can play this, and I think Fae are one of these that should be open to a lot of cool, weird interpretations.
Well,
That
I was going to say
yeah.
along those lines, two of my favorite, and I'm going to go back to Gygax, right?
Okay.
With this would be going to two of the stories in Knight Errant.
Okay.
I believe the story is a Revel in Realm Mord, right? Where actually Gordon Chert wind up going to Natmarsh, and there's this village called Grimmelkinsham, right? And there's an establishment of sorts that is run exclusively by women. You can probably guess the nature of it. Called Rosie's. And in the same way that how do I put this? In the same way that Hansel and Gretel were lured by the tasty gingerbread and cookies and such, well, young men are lured by other wares that are for offer there. We'll put it that way. So in fact, what you have there is a brothel run by hags in disguise, basically.
Nice.
And I kind of like it because, again, if you're playing with the fact that your characters are kind of immature boyos, there you go. And there's actually an enchanted item that's there that Gord's supposed to recover. But that's one example of something they did that I thought was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
And then also, which one was it with the magic shrooms, dude? House in the Tree, right? Basically, Gord and Hop go out looking for Dweomer mushrooms, right? And Dweomer mushrooms basically give you the person who eats it gets the Dweomer that the mushroom possesses for the course of several hours. So these are enchanted mushrooms that give you magical powers, right? And the problem is, of course, that they're being guarded by Pukons. who are these little fae who
Yeah.
are extremely lawful and extremely territorial about the fact that they brought their mushrooms to this portion of the gnarly, and damn it, you're stealing our mushrooms. Yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, you've got a cool Fey MacGuffin with the I can't help but think whenever I hear Dweomerdot, I keep thinking Microdot, but that's acid, not mushrooms. Um, but nonetheless, you have a trippy substance that gives you magical powers. But to procure it, you have to confront these angry little fae who are none too happy to be deprived of their shrooms. So yeah, I mean, there's something fundamentally cool and, dare I say it, trippy about that.
All right, so why don't we talk about like what you both have for connections in the Greyhawk and ideas and yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
That work? Who wants to kick it off?
I can go first a little bit then and say that
Yeah.
to me is that the Fae is one of these the earliest transitory realm that goes between all different parts of the multiverse, so to speak, that have evolved at times. But there's also, since it comes from life itself, that means that where there's a lot of life, there's often Fae interactions, and primarily forests. So most forests have at least some sort of Fae connection that is easy. If you use primal magic and stuff, you can kind of access it and you can kind of get it there. Meaning, if you go out in the desert where there and start saying, "Oh, I want to summon some Fae," you probably not get anything. But Sus Forest is one of these old forest that has been around forever. So that means that there are lots of Fae, and some of them are connected more to the light part of the Fae, like Selene and High Folk and part. And then you have some of the ones that are much more darker, dim forest and sus forest and Dreadwood and stuff. They have those connections, and so that means that in those areas, creatures that are normally only found in the Fey realm can survive there and breed and so on. But if they go out in the rest of the world, they might not be functioning that well, so to speak, or they might be hostile to them, or they might be seen as too weird and stuff. So that's why a lot normal common folks say, "Oh, the forest is haunted," and all of that. It's simply because it's parts in the gnarly and Welkwood to some degree too, and the elves probably try to promote and sustain it to a lot of degrees because it's part of their defense bulwark because
Yeah.
it scares off others. So it's part of both politics, it's part of the geography, it's part of the fauna and the ecology of the setting. That I think in Joff the same way. These are old forests, the dim forests and stuff. So they have Fey connections. Good Central Adri probably has a lot of it, but it's so far away from ordinary civilians, and a lot of people from the Great Kingdom and stuff. I guess a lot of us say don't go too far into the Adri because you get lost and you never come back again, and so they're kind of scared of it. So it's one of these. It's easy to be superstitious about it, and it also has connections to, and then to other creatures as well. I have hags is one of the examples, so to speak, of that they're kind of a negative. A dark phase, so to speak. You have red caps and a bunch of other critters. So they've come and gone, and some of them are capable, like hags and anises and stuff. They're capable of surviving fairly well in the real world too. So that means that thankfully they don't reproduce easily. So that means that some of them have to go back to the Fae in order to reproduce, and some of them can, and some of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're different, and Fae is so chaotic. So, and it's been around for such a long time that a lot of creatures have different types of connections to the Fae, and the elves have that connection that they have to stray through. It's through their gods and their pantheon that they keep the connection to the Fae, and if they lose that, and then their gods will not grant them Faedom when they grow old, so to speak, and stuff. So that's my take on how it works. And then so a lot of these little local things and regional stuff, like in the Sus, is a good example of dark. And then you have like Selene, and the elves probably built some of their realms in areas that had that connection, and then they maintain it and cultivate it and preserve it, like we will do state parks or something like that. We kind of sustain it and make sure that it's there, and the elves in Celine, they want to make sure that their pixies and their brownies of others, that they thrive and they are there, so to speak. So they maintain good relations with them.
And I was going to say with mine, I can think of a few
What's up?
specific examples.
Yeah.
There's a strong implication that there's a connection between Spinecastle, the Rakers, and the Underdark
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
in the writing, in the literature.
Yeah.
One of the things I did was one of my player characters. This will be controversial. I know it was controversial when it came up with some people. I don't care. One of my players wanted to play a tiefling, and what I came up with, without going into her backstory, the character's backstory, too much, I talked to the guy and I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what. What if this tiefling is part of a bloodline that the Horn Society has kept around, in case of emergency, break glass, in case there is something like the Crook of Rao and it actually does seal off completely fiends from the Oath. And so they have this bloodline of tiefling, and she basically comes upon when they're vivisecting one of the elder tieflings. There are very few, right? There aren't that many, maybe a dozen tops. But she comes upon one being basically vivisected, an elderly one. It freaks her out as a kid. She runs away, and she's snatched up by the Unseelie Court and turned into an instrument of chaos, basically. She is raised to go ahead and undermine the efforts of everyone who has been trying to impose human order and the order of the lawful gods of various sorts on these areas, and of humanity in general. Just the encroachment of civilization, the encroachment in particular of lawful gods. You're going to go there and you're going to screw that up for me, okay? So she's set loose in Spinecastle, along with some creatures that are a Wolfgang Bauer invention called Orphans of the Black. I believe he invented them. And the idea with these orphans is that they are the Fey-touched children who have suffered horribly at the hands of systems, and they will attack on sight anyone who's lawful. Right? Is the general idea. So, and I'm thinking, what better place than Spinecastle, right? You got the Hextorians running the place. You got a thriving slave trade. God knows what was done to children in the aftermath of the city falling. This would be, so basically, she's surrogate. This tiefling is surrogate mother to this band of Fey-touched children, unaging children, who want to burn everything down. And one of her contacts, one of her friends, is another obscure Bauer creation, but this one, I showed it to you the other day, Jay.
yep, yep,
And it's one of my favorite little Fey creatures.
yeah. I got it. I can
She
bring it up.
appears in Dragon 227, and she's called a Glorus.
1 sec. Yeah, I'd never heard of it until you shared it with me. Okay.
And this is one of, during that period of Dragon, which I think is somewhat underrated for its monsters and for the buried Greyhawk lore and other things you can find there. But this monster in particular I love because basically what it is, as it mentions, it giggles, sings, and titters. A Glorus giggles, sings, and titters more often than they speak, but they can speak Drow, Elvish, and the fairy tongue. And they create a constant droning. They can create a constant droning sound. My favorite being the Glorus often offers commentary on its followers, congratulating one on a particularly heavy blow or berating another for not pressing the attack strongly enough. It seems to have trouble deciding what is sentient and what is not. They address giant spiders and Darrow as equal in their coterie of followers, and may even ask sentient followers to apologize to non-intelligent ones if the occasion merits it. So basically in third edition, I believe they fleshed that out in the Underdark book, and had the idea that with the Glorus, you have non-evil Underdark dwellers build shrines and wind up bringing food and shinies to the Gloras, and sometimes will even leave their mortally wounded kin at these shrines, to be blessed or to be healed.
Yeah, it says right here, ecology. Their worship is a messenger of Illustrae. So,
Yep.
oh, TM Shane, encounter in line. Good to see you.
Awesome. Hello.
We're talking the Feywild, the Fey realm. We're getting in some deep discussion here on fairies and special creatures. I got with me Anna Meyer and Leslie Reno, Oblivion Seeker, Invisible Conjurer. Welcome in. Thank you so very much. And we do have a giveaway for a classic D&D reprint.
So basically, before this PC fell into things, by the way, just to touch on that, the general idea was that she could she could provide the Glorus with information of what was going on up above in the city and in the immediately under it, and the Glorus in turn could tell her and the children what was going on much, much deeper, and if anything was disturbing. So yeah, sorry about that.
No. So I love that. I really do. Yeah, it's cool. And like I said, Les.
And of course, it being Spine Castle, everything went to crap. So.
Yeah. Well. So these are really cool because you're looking at a Fae now that is Underdark and can be used in the above world too, right? Both, I think.
You could, but I kind of prefer keeping it in an
Underdark
ecology.
Okay. Okay.
Again, I just love that idea that the thing. There's nothing more entertaining, Jay, let me tell you, than having a Glorus demand that player characters apologize to its bat. And the bat will cock its head and just look emptily at blankly at the players while the players are, look, we're profoundly sorry for having caused you any distress, oh mighty winged one. Weak. On the other hand, you don't want to piss off the Glorus because, yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah, it seems really cool. I spelled encounter line wrong. Damn it. I really liked it, and I can see, especially, and Illustrate really crosses a line that a lot of people don't want to go to with Drow. Like, oh yeah, good deity Drow, but Ed Greenwood, has made that a living off of that, right?
Yeah, or you could not specify the deity, right? You could not just have.
That's so true.
There, because in my thing, she's just there. She's hanging out. She's happy in the Underdark. She's got this tiefling she can talk to and these Fey children she can say hi to. Well, she did. Now all that's just gone to hell. But nevertheless, she was happy and content, and she could spook the local monsters into giving her gold coins or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one of the examples that I would use. There are also.
Excellent.
And I'm going back to earlier editions where it mentioned that hags would mate with human males in order to have always female offspring. From one of the some of the ecology and background articles they used to do on the hags and some stuff in Monster Compendium. All I'm going to say is I want you to imagine a warlord who is a lycanthrope. I mean, straight up werewolf.
Okay.
Coupling with a hag. Now, of course, the hag's children don't receive the benefits of lycanthropy, but they are furry. So you wind up with a copy of hairy hags. Hags.
Oh, that's interesting.
Daddy was a werewolf warlord.
So almost like a level of tiefling that it may not have any powers at all, but just has some blood. So, right, something like that. The same.
Something like that. It's just the idea, because I liked the idea that she wanted her children to be his heir, which he wasn't quite fond of. Right. It was basically one of these things. Hey, if you sleep with me, I'll give you secret knowledge that'll allow you to conquer all these things. Well, okay. Hey,
yeah,
by
of
the
course.
way, I have kids.
Of course.
Oh no.
Yeah, of course.
Not that. These aren't my kids.
Nice.
Now, wolf warriors have their own little vibe going on with that. So.
Oh my God, Sam.
There's actually believe it or not, there's an article of mine that's floating around that should be published at some point soon, I hope. Which has a lengthy digression on lycanthropy, the phases of the moon, and the difference between the like basically werewolves by blood versus werewolves by infection and reproduction and everything else. And I cite all the sources going back through Dragon
Oh my
Magazine,
gosh.
where that article killed me. Um,
I like wolf fairies.
but it's kind of cool.
All right, Anna. So what are you thinking now in this discussion?
I think it can be Fae are, I think, an indispensable addition to almost any campaign. You want
Okay.
creatures like this in your campaign. They're also
Oh
some of
yeah.
the most useful critters, but it's also one of the and it's like you don't need to overthink it. Meaning you just throw some cool pixies to irritate them, or brownies or red caps to annoy them or something. So these can just be a little flavor and a little spark of sparkle of something, and that's all they need to be. Or you can also say, well, this is a transitory plane that as a phenomena that interacts with a whole bunch of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make a whole world out of it, and you can give it a history, you can give it aspects and a whole bunch of stuff that ties into a whole meaning you can go the whole range from just a little bit of sparkle and to this is an integral deep part of the setting that can do a lot of stuff, so to speak, and there that explains a lot of things that ties into it. That player characters like elves have ties to,
Right.
and so on and so forth. So it that's I think that's one of the best usefulness with the Fae is that it can span the whole gamut from just a little bit of flavor to a deep integrated large part of a setting, so to speak. It can
And
go the whole range from one
and
to the other. Yeah.
you can hint at things too.
Mhm.
I was thinking about, and it's kind of funny because this was already part of my backstory and campaign before this idea got introduced in fifth. But the idea that the Elandrin, for example, go through seasonal changes in fifth
Mhm.
edition, the idea
Yeah.
that they go through their, if you will, their winter, their spring, their summer, their autumn,
Oh
and
okay.
it affects their moods,
Yep.
right, in their lives. I had something similar in mind with the Elven Kingdoms of Greyhawk, where the idea is, now mind you, a season of Elven Kingdom time could take centuries.
Yeah.
But the idea would be that they see their own kingdoms, if that makes sense, as going through cycles and seasons. So you have periods of extreme productivity and growth and glory and light, and then you have seasons that are more somber and mournful and with more of a sense of loss and introversion.
Yep.
Which, by the way, if you need a rationalization for why Queen Yolanda might declare neutrality, that could be one.
Mhm.
Maybe she and her kingdom have entered that stage, right?
Yep.
Um, and the idea that it affects, you know, again, it's that idea of being. It goes into this. It's the idea of cycles of time and the idea of deep time versus human time,
Mhm.
and how incongruous those two things can be. Um, sometimes you just stand in awe. I mean, I'm sure we've all had that experience. And Anna, you're in California, where you see these trees, and these trees are just freaking ancient.
Yeah. Huge and
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
Northern
there
Europe,
these
and Europe, yeah,
pine trees up in the mountains here. They're some of the oldest
yeah, and some of the redwoods,
examples.
yeah,
Yep. And some of the other
spectacularly
oldest
old.
trees are actually at the edge of the tundra. Those trees grow so slow, so they're also some of the oldest trees on Earth. Not as old as the pine trees up here in the hills, in the high mountains in
Mm-hmm.
California, but they're old for the same reason. The climate is so bad that they can only grow a couple of weeks per year. They can grow a little bit, then they are dormant
Oh.
almost the rest of the time, so to speak. So they can only put a few more needles and get a bit of sunlight. And when it's warm enough, most of the year it's so cold that they just dormant, waiting for the next few weeks or days of enough. Here it's temperature. Up north, it's both temperature and sunlight. They can't grow in the winter. So and you can have a fantasy version of that. You can have something that only happens every few thousand years, that have only a few times, a few minutes every night, or it's only in summer, or only when it gets really cold, or whatever. Meaning some sort of phenomena that occurs only regularly or very, very rarely. And think of these insects that swarm every 7th year. What if the
Locusts.
Fae come? Yeah, exactly. What if the Fae comes every century or every 77 years or every 700 years or whatever it is, meaning something happens regularly and you need to stop it or need to make it sure it happens again or whatever it is, meaning there are interesting things you can tie into this. What if the anises or green hags or something, if they had babies every 2000 years, then it's like 500 more of these critters happening, and you get invaded with these things or something, and meaning you there's so many ways you can twist this one way or the other. And I think the Fae is particularly well suited to being twisted 1 or 2 or 3 times over. You can really screw with things, and the Fae can handle it, so to speak. That's where you can go crazy.
There's also, and I think that's
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my mind just went blank.
That's all right.
The Welkwood has that fairy court of rings as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is supposed to be a portal to the Seelie Court and so forth, or at least to the
Yeah.
lands that they're hunted by the Seelie Court. And one of the things in my campaign, because I like the idea of doubling, and I kind of like the idea of going all Peter Murphy for a moment, yin and bloody yang. Having the idea that in my campaign, there's not only the fairy court of rings to the Seelie Court's territory in the Welkwood, in the Sus, there is a parallel or almost identical fairy ring that opens on the Unseelie Court. The difference between the two would be that the fairy court of rings in the Welkwood runs by a very fairly precise astrological calendar that can be that certainly the elves have figured out. They won't mess with it, but they figured it out, and they understand how this stuff works. The one in the Sus, however, is all if there's a pattern to it, everyone's sure, but no one has been able to figure out what the pattern is. So periodically, it'll open a portal, and some nasty fey, horrible fey creature will burst forth.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and inevitably this results in horrible situations, like some cult of depraved humans deciding that whatever has emerged is a god.
Yeah.
Um,
And oh,
Hmm.
I was just going to say, I think about
Okay.
the movie Gremlins. There
yeah,
you
yeah.
have an idea for a Fae. What if you cast a certain type of spell and they go crazy, or something? So don't do that, so to speak. Meaning don't do whatever or something, and don't cast any
Yeah,
magic, because
prohibitions.
then they go crazy and get evil and multiply like crazy or something. So and they're annoying because they will follow the party around, and they would just be very annoying and ask questions and so on, because they're drawn to the magic the characters have, and they beg them to cast a spell
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something, or whatever. And there's only like 5 of them, and if they cast a spell, there will be 50 of them. They will be evil, and they will go on and multiply for whatever, 1 day per level of the spell being cast or whatever it is, something like that. And they will be in menace for the whole countryside for a while. Meaning, there, I think the Fae, you need to
Excuse me.
have cool ideas like this. You need to have come up with twisty, fun stuff. The annoying, and you can have them silly and part of it, because that's there's a Swedish children's movie where there's little tiny trolls that are kind of Fae-like, and all they're asking is like, why is that? Why is that? Why are you doing
Yeah.
that? Why?
Mhm.
Why? And they're just going around, why?
They're
And
curious.
yeah, exactly. They're so curious, and they just go around. And in the beginning, first time you watch that episode, you get so angry, and then after a while, you love these little critters because they are kind of cute, but they're so annoying. Yeah, so you can have all sorts, and they might be holy in an area. What if the elves consider them protectors of the forest, so don't kill them or something or whatever? So yeah.
There's also Yeah, I mean, you can do all kinds of cool stuff like that with the.
Yep.
Matter of fact, there is in one of the Dragon magazines, and I believe that it was resurrected by Cobalt Press recently
Ex
in one of
yeah.
its creature books. But it was basically a beer leprechaun. Um, and the beer leprechaun, basically, its entire purpose, right,
Mhm.
is that it wants to hang out and drink.
Yep.
And if you don't let it drink, it's kind of like almost like the brownies. You know, the brownies will take care of you. This other creature this other fae will take care of that. These ones will wreak havoc with your tavern, and they live inside a beer carrel. It's really
Keg?
trippy and fun.
Oh
They live inside
gosh.
of beer kegs,
Wow.
and basically they're the worst bar patron you can imagine
I'll
by
say.
virtue of their. But let me see if I can pull
Beer
it up.
leprechauns.
Yeah,
Mm.
here we go, man. We've got the fairy fiddler. That one's pretty cool too.
A fun. I don't know if that sounds like fun, Jeff. That sounds like a DM annoying you encounter. Just let him
And then
drink.
you've got oh, and the fairy fizz. I forgot about that one. Anna, you would like that one, I think. The fairy fizz appeared in Dragon magazine back in 1993, right? And it's a mystical entity similar in nature to a treant or galabdur. The fairy fizz is a magical being found exclusively in sylvan woods and fairy settings or in the kingdoms of elves.
Mhm.
The fizz, as it is sometimes called, is simply a face, the old elven word for face being fizz, found on magically enchanted wooden surfaces. For the most part on trees of the woodland, although it can also appear on large wooden doors, enchanted houses, bridges, drawbridges, and others. It's detectable only 25% of the time, 50% for druids and elves, when its eyes or mouths are closed. So it's effectively camouflage then, right?
Right.
But then it can open its eye and it spits on any basically acidic resin on any fire with smaller than 2.5 feet in diameter.
Mhm.
The saliva also affects any live target as if an irritation spell had been cast on it,
Hmm.
with the effects of both itching and rash occurring.
Ooh.
Its main attack is spell use. It's capable of casting spells as a wizard or druid at a level equal to its hit dice. And it's got some pretty decent hit dice, 10 to 12.
Yeah.
And yeah, it goes on. They have enormously long lifespans, like thousands of years old if undisturbed. Um, and basically the thing is that it knows all this stuff, right? But it doesn't want to give up its secrets for one simple reason. It realizes if I tell this goon everything I know, he or she is gonna go back and tell, and eventually I'll wind up with lines of people wanting my advice, and all I want to do is just sit here and rest and observe, and my peaceful existence will be upset by a bunch of wannabe scholars, and I'm gonna have to spit irritating acid on all of them, and it'll be a big mess, and then I'll get attacked, and then I'll have to kill, and I don't want any of that mess. Um, yeah, I love the Fae Fizz, man. That's just a great little piece. But
Okay.
that's another Dragon magazine one.
I'll say. So beer leprechaun related to Shurgen. Is that Surgeon or Puka? I had Buka. I had a Buka. That's a sad story. I had a Buka in the one of the rafters of an Altamiran warehouse, and one of the character members shot a magic missile and killed it, and then found out after the
Uh-oh.
fact it was the childhood play mate of one of the other party members. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
what I love about the I'd have to look it up again. I believe it's a beer leprechaun, and the thing that I loved about it is the image burned itself into my head. Um, it basically is a little leprechaun looking fella, except he's got a nasty grin on his face, and he's brandishing a dagger like he just wants to jerk you in the stomach, man. Like he's like straight up a murderous little leprechaun. And instead of a pot of gold, he wants his pot of booze, man.
Well, we all know
So
don't get near Freddie McCruger.
yeah, don't take him to Gary Con, right?
Yes.
Um, and keep him away from the what do you call them? The drink of choice of Curtis.
Of Curtis? Oh,
Yeah,
the
keep
beer,
away from the
whatever the
white, whatever they are.
yeah,
The spotted cow.
White Claws.
spotted cows.
No, I was going to say keep them away from the White
Oh,
Claws.
White Claws, yeah.
Because I think that the vodka and juice might not mix so well with them. If they can't handle their beer, I hate to think of how they'd be on vodka.
That's rough, man. So, all right. So, what other little what other tidbits do we have?
One last thing for you, Jay.
Yeah,
you
sure.
were talking about. She touched on one of my favorites. Anna, you mentioned one of my favorite types of Fey earlier.
Thanks, Troy.
Red caps.
Yep.
And yeah, Jay, work some red caps into your.
So I used red caps once.
Did they get to do the dipping of blood stuff?
Well, I used them in an actual published source adventure. They appear in one of the lowest levels of Expedition Ruins at Greyhawk.
Yep.
They're riding a freaking juggernaut.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
They're tough the way they are. They're really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're like to throw in like, oh my gosh, they're just goblins, but no. So, another interesting thing. I'm attempting to find something and I can't. I've tried to locate it in Dragons, and I know there's a Keebler Elves one, but I just can't find it. So I'm passing on looking anymore. So red caps are in LG stuff from G Off Nasty. Yeah, I mean, so I don't even know when they appear and if they're 3rd edition or what edition they are.
I think they were around all way back. They're definitely around in 3rd edition and Pathfinder, but I think they're older than that. I think the oldest are probably 2nd edition at least.
I can't find them in 2nd edition.
And
then they're a 3rd edition.
I think they're 3rd, but
Boggles.
Okay.
Man.
It doesn't mean that they're not some obscure mention in an adventure somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I was going to throw out that I love Boggles as well.
Yeah, Boggles are fun. Yeah.
You can't say anything about that. If you see what I'm running tomorrow.
Oh.
You can't say anything about Boggles, right?
Well, I will say that in my campaign, okay, the goblins who are maintaining part of the city's Spine Castle's infrastructure, took in some refugees from down below, right? And that these would be some Boggles who, for various reasons, decided to move. And the Boggles are quite good at passing themselves off as malformed goblins themselves and going up and deliberately instigating fights just to see what happens.
I'm just going to iterate with red caps. They are from Dragon issue number 12, so they're really old.
Yeah.
150. No, Dragon 158, according to Michael von Moko.
Okay.
Dragon 158, which puts them in 2 years.
Oh, sorry, Dragon Plus number 12. Yeah, 12. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, that was a little plus there. So, yep. Mm-hmm.
The red caps go back to folklore, so they're not a.
No, they're not a D&D invention. But there is another little extra cool, the Mad Caps.
Yeah.
There you have even Fey red caps, Mad Caps. And there's a little I can put in. It's Forgotten Realms fandom site, but it's generally good if you just want to find out something. Put it in red cap there. There's a Mad Cap that I think is really cool, so I'm going to save him. Yeah.
And I should point out there's a little. A couple of my players picked up on it after a while. So the goblins who are maintaining the city's infrastructure, specifically underneath, in Spine Castle, have taken in Boggles.
Right.
They've basically, as part of the deal of taking in Boggles and some other creatures, they've got their hands on some Rothe.
Stench cows.
Yeah, the nice little underdark, the beef of the underdark, if you will. And the goblins themselves, for a while, were disparagingly called red caps. So the Fey connection and Underdark connection, I've deliberately been playing with that.
Okay.
They were originally the Broken Birds for a reason that has to do with the Aarakocra in their ancient history. But this tribe went by when they were absorbed by another tribe, they were called the Red Tribe, the Red Caps clan. So yeah, I try to work in little things like that. It's nice little puzzles for the players to pick at. Like, what's it? Wait, this is the goblins are not red caps. Why are they calling themselves this?
No bugs are just like someone was pissed off one day and said, I'm gonna really
I
teach
love
a lesson.
Nilbugs.
I'm gonna teach a lesson to everyone. That's what that one
Yeah.
is.
But yeah, Nilbog is one of these things that have mechanics before story, so to speak. Mechanics is the key thing, and then just because they just wanted to screw with the players mechanically. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that you need to be aware of it. So it's one of these, because sometimes you might need a monster to fulfill a specific mechanic function in order to trigger the players or make it difficult or something. So make an
Well,
obstacle.
I think you
So,
could also use it as a story opportunity. It's like the two are not
Yeah.
necessarily
No, exactly. They're
opposed.
not it's not, one doesn't exclude the other one, but I think it's one of these monsters that are particularly that come from the mechanic end. That's my guess.
I have to show this just because Sam found it, and Roger Moore made this.
Okay.
So the Keebler Elf.
Oh,
Yep, I
Dragon
remember him.
5036. Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. So.
And let
I
me
knew
guess
it-
which issue that's in.
Uh,
No, I'm saying month-wise.
36 is way back.
yeah.
What month is it by, out of
70. It's
curiosity?
got to be 70 something. 79, 80.
I'm just saying it sounds to me like an April Fool's little gig.
Is it a
You
fourth
can't.
issue of the year?
I don't. I just these volume number things. I have. You can't figure out what the date is on this thing.
Usually, you can usually see when it's published in the
Sam
on the
said it
second
is
page.
April.
Is it
Ah,
April?
okay, yeah.
It's April. Okay, there you go. What year? So issue 30. Yeah.
That's just like when they included the Valley Elf song
Yeah.
with its lyrics. So yeah, I mean, these would be. I really like. I really like the. I was also going to say, by the way, don't feel afraid to dip into if you're doing this sort of thing. We mentioned the Heroes of the Feywild book. There's also
it's all good.
like
Yeah,
just to give you
April 1980. Yep.
I suspected as much.
Yep.
Legendary Books has a book out now. They have a Fey Bestiary and a Fey like companion book, like basically stuff for 5th edition, easily pillageable and convertible if you play other editions.
Okay.
Bauer has put out some good Fey material, and all of his monster books have neat. They're quite often some of them are actually Fey that are updated from earlier editions. I've noticed, and the same thing's true of our good friends at Frog God as well. They've taken a lot of the good old Fey monsters and woodland monsters and updated them.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good to have stuff. With the Fey,
or either 5th edition or your OSR stuff. Because I hate to see some of these monsters go to waste, because some of them are just so cool.
Absolutely, it's always good digging out some stuff. Did they have? Yeah, they did. Fourth, they had another one and another one somewhere else. I couldn't find it. There's a second one where they're evil. So yeah, that was a good one. So, what's the thought on like to close out the thing? I know this will take a couple minutes to tell the audience like how you implement yours and give them some suggestions on what would be a good way to work with Faye in the Greyhawk campaign. How's that? Did I say that right?
Yeah. Well, unless you go first. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've always, and again, it might have to do with the way that my memories of wandering around the woods when I was a kid on my own when I really shouldn't have been. But hey, my parents didn't realize, so it's all good.
Different time.
Yeah, different time. That now, that kind of mixes with my memories of D&D, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I love the idea that you can play with that question of boundaries, right, between the natural and the supernatural, and between civilization and things perhaps older than civilization, or perhaps other than human concepts of civilization. The idea that the land itself, there are things that you have to pay reverence and respect to within the land, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll bite you in the ass. These kinds of ideas and this idea of liminal or borderland spaces, and where something is not quite wilderness, but you know that on the other side of that, there's something unknown. There's something potentially dangerous and scary, and that something from there might wander over. These are great ways to play with some of the Fae ideas. The idea that the Fae are can be temperamental. The fact that their bargains might not even seem reasonable to any sane person. I mean, think about what I was saying with the my one poor PC. Oh yeah, I'll help you. I just want you to give me every memory you have of your wife and children. Okay. Or I want you to go and fetch this obscene. I want you to go fetch an acorn that grows on a tree, once every 5 years, or some crazy stuff like that, right?
Okay.
Just the idea that you have these things that challenge rationality, that challenge our concept of self, even. I mean, like I said, when you have the Fae talking to you, but no one else can see them, it's like, are you crazy, or is there something there? The way that you can play with all these ideas within the context of these supernatural or supranatural, more than natural creatures.
Right.
Is to me the appeal. As far as entrenching it and, oh, my characters are going to go to the Feywild, you don't have to do that. As a matter of fact, if you look at most stories throughout folklore and history, that happens periodically, but it generally winds up ending disastrously for the character involved.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
So it's not. It's just know what you're doing and keep that air of mystery and guessing. Make sure that it's mechanically sound and that it works with your table. And flavor, atmosphere. Go for that feeling that a kid gets in the woods, man.
Yeah, I think that was called Wine Harvest there, Michael. I think that was a Wine Harvest. Yeah, Les, I appreciate all the insight and the depths of what you do for your
I have a
game.
different approach, and what they did in Living Greyhawk is fine. It's just not my bag, man.
Yeah, I got it.
I've got my
it's
own
not my
vibe.
bag, baby.
Yeah, I got my own bag, and my own bag is full right now.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy with what's in it.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing wrong with what they did. Mostly do what you want to do with the Fae, right? But in terms of what I would suggest, that would be my approach.
Okay. And that makes total sense. How about you, Anna?
Well, you can use them for a lot of things. If they are great supporting actors, meaning if you want an NPC that just hangs around a little bit as a guide or just a nuisance or there to just keep an eye on the party, like I'm here, someone sent me to keep an eye on you, and he's almost impossible to kill. And if I do, then my overlord will come and get angry at you. So I'm just here. You have to pay taxes or give me a whatever or something to go. That's one thing. And they can also be a sidekick to druids and stuff. You can give them, instead of a regular familiar, you can have one of these, especially for high level play. Think fairy dragons and other stuff like that. So they are kind of if you want to have a familiar with a twist, start looking into them. And then you can also have them as a kind of punishment. Let's say you're in the forest and doing things, and when the things go dark, that's when all the stuff comes out and it gets dangerous and crazy. And it's not dangerous like in the abyss, but it will be things like you will go crazy. Like you will, if you're in the forest, it's haunted with these little fae, but they're not like undead ghosts. They're more like these annoying things that if you're there and you talk to them and stuff, that means that you will dream about them every night. And if you refuse to fall asleep, then when you fail your con save eventually, you don't fall asleep, but the thing becomes real, so to speak. You can twist your players' minds so they get so damn angry, so you can set them off to some course and do fun stuff with it like that. So
And
it becomes a little quest in itself to purge themselves of these. And one of the things they can do it is that they can. It's like a curse. You can hand it over to someone else. You can have someone else bribe
Yeah.
them and become friends with them or something. So
And-
you
and-
can turn it. Yeah, it's a fun curse, an irritating curse.
And I was going to say, you can have it where them being a quote unquote familiar or an equivalent
Yep.
to a familiar to a druid, where that is possibly a curse.
Mhm.
Where, the question is, how when you have pets, you have dogs or cats, sometimes the
Yep.
question is, who's really the boss here?
Yeah.
When
Mhm.
you're dealing with something as intelligent and manipulative and
Yep.
smart as the Fae,
Yeah, and you can have
how are
them.
you sure that you're not the one who's actually being used
Yeah.
by your familiar?
Yeah, and you can
that
have a
case.
familiar that is very useful in that sense that it has a lot of senses, can do magic and skulk around and be very useful. But if you take too long of a time, he will walk over and simply say, "Well, you see, my master is over there, and he's going to do nasty stuff, but he's too damn lazy to do anything." So
Yeah.
it might be something if you want the players to urge them to do things. You can do that in fun, annoying, irritating ways, so to speak. So it's if you. For me, it's one of my few comical outlets in my DMing is the Fey realm can really feel
see,
yeah.
I'm just
Feel
gonna.
this
I
niche.
guess this is my this. I hate to go on, but I love this the subject.
Yeah.
I was thinking of when I was taking a college course with a writer, and the subject came up. We'd just done a performance on campus of Midsummer Night's Dream, right?
Yeah.
And he said, it hadn't occurred to me that even though it's a comedy, that play is scary. And I was like, "You're kidding! Of course, it's like a horror film." And he was like, he asked me to explain my gut reaction to it, and I was like, "You have this puck who's told to go and take care of the wife, right? Handle the wife situation or whatever." And he sees some humans, and he just decides, "Well, I'm going to do this," and that sets in motion basically attempted murder, attempted rape, all this stuff going on, right? And of course, everything's wrapped up with a neat little bow at the end. But if you think about the havoc that's wreaked upon the human lives, to say nothing of poor Bottom with his ass's head having a vision of beauty, etc., that everyone else just thinks is him being insane, there's something frightening underneath the comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The comedy
yeah.
is laugh
Yep.
out loud funny at times, but it's also like scary when you start thinking through the implications.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's the kind of comedy that I sometimes like, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like,
yeah. Oh, sorry, go on.
no, where it's like, because again, it's one of those things where it is funny because I'm not in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
If I were in that situation, I'd be running to the local priest to friggin' just come clear out the forest or some crap.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean that's either that or I'd be offering to bribe whatever was responsible for screwing everything up.
Yeah. You can have one of these little sidekicks or a guy to simply say, "Well, if you hurt me or don't do this, my evil twin will come and haunt you forever," or something. And you're not really sure if that's true or not, and you might not want to deal with it. It might just be a trick, or there might be something to it. You never know, so to speak. And these creatures are full of illusions and stuff, so they can definitely twist things and do all sorts of things. And if you then it's up to you as a player to believe in it or not, so to speak. And you're not really sure what is true or not. Can this creator actually do this? And if you believe it, it all comes true, and then he can laugh his whatever and so on. So
or you can imagine it saying something completely horrible, like, if anything happens to me, I mean, even if you're not responsible, my twin brother is going to come and kill you because and then just start giggling and saying, I'm just kidding, and then going no, I'm not. Immediately after, it's like, I'm kidding, I'm not really kidding. Just to further confuse them.
Chaotic neutral can be or chaotic neutral or chaotic good or whatever or something, and they can twist, and they can be chaotic good during the day and chaotic evil at night or something. You can have they can have
or you
weird
can think
things
of
like
that, the seasonal model that I mentioned too.
Yeah, the seasonal model that they might have
maybe it's having a bad millennium. So
yep, they might have something like that. So it's like you don't want to be around me next year or next week
Yeah.
or
Or next
something. It's like,
century.
flee! I'm going to go and then they run away or something. So yeah.
Really interesting discussion tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry I didn't contribute as much as I would like,
No,
but
no, no,
it's
no,
on my
this is- yeah.
fringe. Yeah, but it's
Mhm.
okay.
And try to avoid taking any food that they offer or drink.
Yeah.
That's my other thing.
Well, that's the same thing for an anti-paladin.
Yeah. But this one might be that you get like weird, cool dreams or something like that. You
Yeah,
might,
or you wind
might-
up trapped
yeah.
in another world for 30 years.
yeah,
or
you might be able to. Every forest you go out to will be haunted with these things that only you see,
course.
whatever, so something. So yeah.
it's like you have a sip of wine and it's like you wake up and it's like you had a week-long bender.
Yeah.
Only the week-long bender lasted several years.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's
Mhm.
funny.
Yeah, you can do. This is something, but but another tip is that don't do it without the players. There should be forewarning, so to speak.
Or they should be entertained at the very least.
Exactly.
Know
yeah,
their
so,
humor.
Yeah, so don't spring it as a trap and then they're whatever, unless the story really demands it, so to speak. But spread rumors about it. The villagers say, oh, there are people disappearing in the forest. They never come back again. And we hear screams or whatever. Do all these stuff. And then when they see the little thing with the red cap standing out there, kind of giggling at them or something, then they are like, oh, we are wary that might be or something. So yeah.
All right,
In other words, don't drink the
water, just like
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Before we do shout outs, I'm going to put this out there that I push back the sign-ups for Virtual Greyhawk Con for events until September 28th, so a week from what's that, Saturday or we need DMs, okay? Greyhawk Reborn will be putting events in, but no, we're a little light on them. So if you
pay warning, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
So I got some openings too for some stream events. I got to get working on that. It's just so much as Armin, you're good. I appreciate it. You're good. You're in for late Friday night. Is he in a Kuntz Adventure too? He probably is. So. I have not asked you, Garner. I haven't asked a lot of channels, man. Because I'm assuming at this point that I don't, I'd rather, please just come to me, man. Just let's set it up. I'm going to go over the schedule as if I have on right now on. Why don't I just? I think I got opening Saturday, Friday. I got late night Saturday open. There's a lot of good time slots open still. So if you just want to get with me sometime tomorrow, Friday, or Saturday, we can work it out. I just haven't really reached out to a lot of other channels. So, all right, cool. That works. I appreciate that. So, and yeah, I'd love to have you participate. All right, so that's that. Where we, Les, what's going on shout out wise?
Oh man, shout out wise. I want to give a little shout out to Mr. Gary Holian for his fine effort putting together the zine, and also for doing some wrangling. I think there's going to be another good product coming out from Cannon Fire before too long, and likewise the estimable Ewan the Norker, who has some great material coming up. In addition to that, I'm on my own. I've got some articles coming up in various things. I've got some top secret projects that I'm playing around with. I've got Virtual Greyhawk Con coming up, of course. And I also have playtesting for a few surprises that should be showing up later in the year.
Oh, someone just told you that we got to be quiet about that. In chat.
Oh, well, no, it depends on which top secret project we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
There's so many top secret projects from that now. I swear it's worse than working with the feds. Sorry about that, Curtis. Just kidding. But yeah. And yeah, as Pluffett's Measure mentions, there is a piece in Visions 4 that involves the Ettercaps and a secret history of the Ettercaps that ties in the druids of the old faith, the elves of the kingdom of Selene, and some very, very dark secrets.
So I'm not gonna open up a can of worms, but I never understood in the Tolkien poem in the one book where they start saying editor cap editor. Was that The Hobbit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's just that comes up in my notes for that, by the way.
So there you go.
I
So I'll
love
wait.
that little
I'll wait for the
plaything on the
article
spider.
then. Okay.
But I think you'll also like that Anna, it gets into some stuff that comes through Fey portals at unpleasant times too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a really good issue. I've seen a good chunk of it, and I got to say that it's
Beautiful.
a great lineup for an Underdark themed issue.
Nice.
And also, there should
Awesome.
be coming in that same issue, just to give you another taste or a tease. We remember we did the episode on books.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There will be a couple of selections by me on books of the Underdark.
Nice.
As
I like that too.
From the Underdark and what they contain.
Cool. Put Les back into his Faraday cage. Uh-oh.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Les, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you as
Thanks.
always.
Yeah.
Good
Great,
being here.
great
Awesome.
discussion. I know. What do you
Correct,
got going
Sam.
on?
Correct.
Well, first, I can post the link again because there might be new people coming in. I posted a short little primer on the Feywild that I put together from some of my notes on the Feywild. I posted that yesterday, and now it's available for everybody. And then I'm going to post a new mapping Shieldlands with a look at the status, my overall map of Shieldlands. There's some new screenshots and a couple of little pitfalls, but overall good progress. So we're getting there. And then there is also the first of my locations will come. There will be a little the Claren Border Keep. One of the locations that I've mapped on the mapping stream Friday will come out. I'm putting together, it will be like a poster with all a little bit of the story, will be location maps. It will be, it will come with a zip file where you have the stuff you can put in your VTT or print them and use and the story and the location and stuff like that of it. So it's more like a first test so to see how you like things like that to be presented, so to speak, meaning how much story or whatever. So it's the first kind of test because then I have a template and then I can start putting all the buildings and stuff into, and I'm going to make one for buildings, one for settlements and stuff. So that way I can, when I do things, I can produce maps of buildings and stuff with and have like a fact sheet, so to speak, about the building and so on. So it will come with the GPS coordinates as well and how far. It's 8 miles away from Quitwall. It's one of the new Shieldlands border fortifications and stuff like that. So there's a couple of military installations, and then there will be an old Flan village that I will map out to. Is coming very soon. And also a look at exertion in my Hawktail rules, and hopefully we can have a first play test on Sunday. And I'm working on creating pre-gens and monsters and stuff for Virtual Greyhawk Con. That plus my commission. Those are the two main things, is to getting ready for and it's a lot of stuff too when you produce your own version of D&D, so to speak.
I'll say.
But it's so those are the things that go on. But there will be a mapping live stream on Friday again. So
Yay.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only night I'm not on between now and Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
There you
so
go.
all right. I did my best to put this classic adventure, at least the front of it, through to the courtyard on the table for session 1, as Bill Master Crafter now won't be here for like 4 to 6 weeks because of his son's got like hockey practice on. They got moved to Thursday night. So I'm not doing the Carlos one now. That got pushed back again. But instead, I'm replacing it with a little bit modernized version of, and here's some other pictures of this up front.
Awesome.
Notice it's a 2-tiered wall system here. And then there's that from the rear. And then, but this is, if you don't know, it is A2.
Oh.
Secret of the Slaver's Stockade. So there you go. So that's the front of it, and that's
Mhm.
as far, I assume that's as far as it. Well, that is as far as you're going to get in the first night. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks. So it took me a while to figure this how to do this because with old school adventures, they're not made for tabletop play. They're made for pencil and paper and drawing out the map and all. So yeah. So I figured it out. I got that. So that is on. I think I got this here. That is tomorrow night. Okay, with a Gamescape 3D sponsor giveaway drawing. So, yep.
I
Thanks.
always love that cover.
Yeah, and that now you know why I said a little quiet there with something you were talking about because it's right there, right?
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah. So and
Yeah.
that is tomorrow
One
night,
of my favorites.
Saturday at 1:00. Meeting number 2 of the new group, unnamed. And if they're not named at the end of this adventure, I will name them, and I will make it a terrible name. So, adventure number
Name them
1,000.
after the adventure.
Well, targets. There will be many targets in this. I have a feeling. See, I like creating I'm creating some really inner party strife here. It's already started. You'll see, one of the player characters is causing it, which is really hysterical. It could get a little ugly though, but we'll see. Note that this has to do with another group that exists in my game, the Prince's Highwaymen. So we'll see. I won't go any further beyond that in case any of them are watching, but yeah, there'll be some interesting things with the Prince's Highwaymen coming out of Altamir, in that Altamir area and the Lort Mills and that whole area. So that will be Saturday. And we'll have a Gavin topic on Sunday. I'm trying to see when Ed is available again for another discussion. He hasn't responded yet, but we'll figure that out for the Ed upcoming. All right, let's do the giveaway. This time I'll remember. No meated tornadoes, no nuclear meat, no meat in the. I'm not allowing a. Thanks, Patrick, for doing those. Does our horses? That's funny, Rascal. Yeah, no song name titles. I want something cool that's short. Like we have the Windborn. That's good, or the hiltless swords. No, Les. That's even worse. So the vegan stuff. That's just terrible. Let's call exclamation point drawing. Let's see who wins. All right, I'm going to close this out. This time and by the way, if you weren't on earlier, Lando won it. I was able to do it because it's in Streamlabs, so even if you logged off, you can still do it. Yeah, I did it afterwards, and it even shows up in chat, so Lando won. So tonight's winner for Classic D&D reprint, Vamp Wickman. There you go.
Awesome.
Chad, you're the winner. So we're going to raid into... Hopefully they're still on. They better be still on. Yeah, they're still on. We're going to raid in Stronghold D&D, Tim, since he's going to be playing Saturday. All right. So we'll see you all. Yep. I'll get with you. Vamp. See you all tomorrow night, Thursday night. Anna for Friday, and then it's 1 to 5. So it's the middle of the afternoon. 1 to 5 on Saturday. All right. See ya. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Everyone have a good one. I didn't hit any wrong buttons tonight, so I'll keep up the trend here.
Yep.
Awesome.
Oh, good. No
wrong buttons, I don't think, tonight, which is really strange. So, all right. Setting the raid up. Oh, God, there's so many new things popping up all over the place. Collab with this, collab with that. I'm not collabing. Oh, my God. It's annoying. Isn't it? Any streamers? Ugh.
Oh, thank you, guys. It's so
Okay,
thank you
great.
so
Now
much for all the comments.
I can't type in. What? Oh, there it is. All right. Starting to raid. See if we can get over 70. That'll be awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
73.
Just make sure I don't. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you tomorrow night, 7:30. Something happened to my.
Yeah, it popped over.
Yep, it went over.
No, I mean my. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Something happened. Yeah. But at least you saved the stream.
Yeah, it was
so
weird.
it's good.
Alright, let me just finish this up here, and then once again. Alright.